Police officers are frequently criticized for the power they hold over us, a power that is sometimes misused. However, they are also the first line of defense when things go wrong. They are the ones who face danger, witness violence, and deal with the darkest sides of humanity. This collection of chilling stories shares the experiences of former police officers who have seen things that will forever haunt them. I spent 30 years as a cop, retiring at 50. Over the years, I'd answered plenty of strange calls, but there's one I'll never shake. It was the night my partner Steve and I were dispatched to a domestic disturbance. A neighbor had called it in. Usually, these calls were pretty routine, something to keep us busy through the night. Not that I looked forward to dealing with couples bickering. We got to the house, and I still remember the address as if it's burned into my brain. The front door was left wide open. The moment we stepped inside, we were hit with an overpowering smell of marijuana. But that wasn't all. The sharp, chemical scent of something stronger, likely meth or cocaine, lingered too. We announced ourselves, calling for the couple to come out. Then we heard a thud from upstairs. Steve, already tense, rested his hand on his holster, ready to draw, but I hadn't quite hit that level of alarm. Steve gestured for me to follow him quietly up the stairs. I rolled my eyes but went along. At the top, we found 3 doors. 2 were open, 1 was closed. The noise from earlier had come from behind the closed door. I knocked and then pushed it open. The smell hit us even harder this time, and then we saw it. A body, obviously decomposing, lay on the bed. Even in the dim light, we could tell it was beyond saving. We drew our guns immediately, and Steve flipped the light on. I told him to check the rest of the room while I kept scanning the house. Every part of me was shaking. I wanted to be anywhere but there. I felt glued to the doorknob, unable to open it. But finally, I worked up the nerve to push it open and turn on the light. The room was empty. Just a small, windowless space with nothing but a filthy old cot. Steve's shout snapped me back, and I rushed back across the hall. There was a shirtless man lying flat across a dresser. We kept him at gunpoint, demanding he stay calm when something latched onto my ankle, yanking hard. I looked down to see a hand reaching out from under the bed. My instinct took over, and I stomped on the arm, pulling out a frazzled-looking woman who was clearly high. I cuffed her while Steve secured the man. We started leading them outside, with both screaming at us incoherently, when we heard one last, blood-chilling sound. Someone upstairs started shrieking, charging down the stairs at us with a knife raised. Steve reacted in time to save us both, shooting the attacker dead. It turned out the house was a crack den, somehow unnoticed by the neighbors. The decomposed woman on the bed had been killed by the man we'd arrested. He admitted she hadn't paid him back. He got a life sentence without parole, while the woman got 30 years. Steve has never lost sleep over what he did that night. He says he just removed one more threat from the streets. My partner and I responded to an alarm at an old office building that had been converted into a doctor's office with an attached pharmacy. Dispatch informed us that a motion sensor had gone off in one of the upstairs offices. Soon after we arrived, the key holder showed up, and we headed inside to secure the building. The stairs were locked behind a door, and the key holder didn't have the right key. So, we took the elevator up to the 2nd floor. When the doors opened, we found ourselves in a pitch-black hallway with only one overhead light shining at the far end. We started checking each door, finding all of them securely locked until we reached the last office. This door was unlocked. Inside, we found an empty office with a large waiting room and reception area, as well as a dozen exam rooms, all vacant and undisturbed. After thoroughly checking the space, we exited back into the hallway, and that's when I felt something was off. The light that had been on at the end of the hallway was now off, replaced by a different light over the elevators. I looked at my partner, and he looked pale. He turned to me and asked, "Weren't all those doors we just checked closed and locked?" I nodded, realizing what he meant. Now, every door in the hallway was wide open. A chill ran down my spine as we quickly moved back through the offices, securing each door. After finishing the last room, we made our way to the waiting area, only for the main door to suddenly slam shut. At the same time, our radios began blasting static. All I wanted at that point was to get out. We rushed to the elevator, headed down to the first floor, hoping to find the key holder again. But they were nowhere in sight. I radioed dispatch, asking for the key holder's contact number to inform them of what we'd found. Dispatch replied that the key holder was still en route, estimating arrival in about 5 minutes. Confused, I told dispatch we'd already been let in by the key holder. That's when dispatch asked me to call them. Over the phone, the dispatcher told me there was no way we could have already met the key holder. According to the alarm company, they'd only just reached them. After a few minutes, the actual key holder arrived. I asked her about the man who had let us inside. When I described him, her face went pale. She told us he sounded like one of the doctors who used to lease an office on the second floor, at the end of the hallway. Then she added, he took his own life at his summer home, just a few days ago. I responded to a call in a small village. A resident had reported strange noises coming from an abandoned building across the street, probably a trespasser. When I arrived, I started searching the building. It was once a 2-story convenience store, now gutted and empty, with only the counter and shelves fixed to the floor. The lights inside didn't work. I checked every aisle and corner, then did the same on the second floor. It was completely deserted. As I walked back to my car, I glanced up at the building and saw someone in a second-floor window. It was a woman, her long gray hair hanging past her shoulders. She was looking right at me with a wide, unsettling smile. My heart skipped a beat, but I hurried back inside, making it up the stairs in less than 10 seconds. When I got to the window, it was empty. No sign of anyone. I checked every aisle again, looked behind the counter, and searched the bathroom. Nothing. Telling myself it was probably my mind playing tricks, I left. But as I looked back one last time, there she was again, with that same mocking, twisted smile. Determined to find her, I went back up, running from aisle to aisle. I was about to give up and leave for good when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. High up on the ceiling, I spotted a dark shape. I shined my flashlight, and there she was, latched onto the ceiling. Her eyes locked onto mine, her terrifying smile frozen in place as she clung to the ceiling with 2 hook-like grips, her feet pressed against the tiles for support. I finally got her down and took her to the station. She didn't say a word, just kept staring at me through the rearview mirror, that awful grin never leaving her face. To this day, I'm not sure if she had some kind of mental condition or if she was just playing a sick game, but whatever it was, her expression never wavered, not once. In all my years as a police officer in Floyd County, Georgia, only 2 experiences truly terrified me. Here's the worst of the 2. It was a slow night, and I was patrolling the dirt roads in my cruiser. This stretch was bordered by dense woods on both sides. Then it happened. I caught a glimpse of someone darting into the woods on my left, but I only saw half of them before they disappeared. I pulled over and aimed my spotlight into the trees. Nothing. It was my duty to check it out, though, so I reluctantly stepped out of the car and started scanning the area. I was on edge, ready to draw my weapon at the slightest movement. Suddenly, the classic snap of a branch sounded from behind a nearby tree, nearly sending me running back to the cruiser. But I held my ground, calling out for whoever it was to come out. A figure emerged from behind the tree, wearing a mask. I instructed them to raise their arms, take off the mask, and come toward me slowly. They raised their hands but didn't remove the mask. I repeated the order more forcefully, demanding they take it off. They seemed like they were about to comply, but then glanced to their left, back at me, and I heard footsteps coming from my right. My heart raced as I drew my gun and shouted for everyone to come out with their hands up. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw another masked figure stepping forward, this one holding an axe. I kept my gun trained on him, but footsteps started echoing from all around me. I looked around to find myself surrounded. At least 10 masked strangers were closing in, forming a loose circle with a narrow opening behind me. Half of them clutched axes or other blunt weapons. I froze. I held my gun up, but I was too rattled to aim at any of them. My stomach turned. Finally, one of them broke the silence, his voice muffled and low, saying simply, "Go away." My heart sank as he spoke, but I understood he was letting me go. I took the chance, turning and rushing back to my cruiser, driving a half-mile down the road as I radioed for backup. When the search team arrived, the group had vanished, leaving no trace. I have a theory about what I stumbled upon. I think I interrupted some kind of twisted, secret gathering, and whoever jumped into the woods had recognized my car as a police vehicle, alerting the others.